everybody, I'm Sean.
And I'm Steph.
And you're watching Rampant Live with our unbelievable, amazing special guest, Deb Eschweiler. How you doing, Deb?
Great. How are you guys?
Fantastic. It's awesome that you're here.
It's awesome that you're here.
We've, of course, known
Thank
Deb
you.
for a very, very long time, and she's always been very kind to us. And 2 years ago, she demoed for us at NAB, and it was an amazing demo. She's awesome. So let's we've been told by a couple people like Monica that you have some ice-breaking stories. So let's start there. Let's just get the party going.
Well, let's see. Monica's story is, I'm not recalling which NAB it was, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. We went to the inaugural Mo-Kart event, if anybody remembers what year that is. That help us remember. And neither Monica and I were going to be driving the cars, and she found a pool table upstairs. So I agreed to play pool with Monica. However, I gave her the caveat that I haven't played pool in a really, really, really long time. And to prove it, I scratched 5 times in a row. Knocked the ball completely off the table. Not just into the hole, not just off the table. And by the 5th one, she was just doubled over in laughter on the floor. And I couldn't find it on Facebook, so I must have tweeted the picture, because we know that it went out to the world, the picture of her on the floor. So
that's awesome.
And again, that's also the last time I ever played pool. So I won bad Monica. Pool is what we it wasn't pool, okay. It was bad pool.
Bad pool.
Bad pool. You can play me. I'm terrible at pool, so we can play together. And
it's a full contact sport. For some reason, when Stephanie plays pool or darts, the darts come flying back off the board and people start diving. It's frightening. Frightening. Same with pool. You're gonna lose an eye playing with Steph. I don't get it. So
so that's why you wear the glasses.
Yeah. That and I think my eyes were falling out. 20 hours in front of a screen and then doing a live show. It's just we're glutton for punishment here. It's been way too much. I got screens here, screens up there. It's out of control. Out of control. I need to get to a forest and unplug or something, So for people who don't know you, which they absolutely should, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll start there.
Okay. Well, I am a freelance video editor who's going to learn to not do this in her chair during this whole.
I do this all the time. I love this.
I started my own company January 1st, 2000. So previous to that, I had a staff job for 6 years. I started as an assistant editor, worked my way up to editor, and then kind of got to the point where the company's focus had kind of changed, and they weren't really going the way I thought I wanted my career to go. So it was just a really good time. I had some great other former coworkers behind me saying, already in the freelance pool, saying, you can do this, you can do this. So I did. And so it's my 17th, I'm in my 17th year and going pretty strong. Every business has its ups and downs. So
sure, of course.
And my clients are largely corporate, a lot of live event companies. We have quite a few staging companies in town. So a lot of my stuff ends up, on a screen 10 feet tall. So, or nice. On the side of silos. Actually, I think you've seen the silo. Yeah.
Let's not breeze by that. Projection mapping is not something you just do, And projection mapping is pretty amazing. And what you showed us looked wild. I mean, it looked really great.
Well, it's good to have a crew that knows what they're doing on the other end. So, we were able to do the math beforehand and get mats and everything ready to go. And I did use the Rampant style mats for that. I was able to.
Mats and mats. That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. It was very cool. It was very
It was
cool.
awesome.
Thank you.
I love projection mapping, and not every editor gets to work on something like that. And, for people who don't know, you're a super nice person, but you are an editing badass. You do. Not many people know Final Cut, Avid, Premiere, and do motion graphic work and edit. You just do so much stuff. And you were doing a demo in Final Cut. You were compositing in Final Cut for our demo, and that's just crazy because I would just jump into a compositor. But it's just you're awesome. You're people who don't know you should realize that you are an editing powerhouse.
Oh well, thank you.
Kylie says, Deb is one of the few people in this industry that was around for the good old days of video production and isn't now a cynical ass dick in the face of innovation and change. I should know to read first before I read out loud. No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that is true.
That is true. I agree with Kylie. I know a lot of people in that category, and I've been around the same amount of time. I hope you're not lumping me in that category, Kylie, but I know a lot of douchebags, if you will, and you couldn't meet a nicer person than Deb. So
yeah, you are awesome and
super kind and gracious. And I mean, look. Not only did you
make me blush.
Well, but I mean, look. You not only did you do several demos for us, like every day, multiple times a day. You also helped us unpack and load, and you didn't have to do that. We actually asked you to stop, and you're like, nope, not gonna happen.
It was awesome. Deb's packing up all the cables and putting them all together. It was so great. It was so nice.
You missed it when you were trying to log in there, Steph. Deb has her own audio guy, her own lighting director. I mean, this is a full ordeal over there.
Very nice.
But the blue light in the corner is
I love the orange and teal. No, there are no accidents. That's deliberately planned. That's orchestrated. Deb. Come on now, take credit for the orange and teal. Come on.
Sure.
So you had mentioned earlier when we were talking to my phone's blowing up with people who can't log in. They all want to talk and see you. Stupid blab. You were mentioning earlier when we were talking that you do know Premiere and you use it, but you're not using it anymore. So that means mostly After Effects, or excuse me, mostly Avid and Final Cut. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well, in my studio, I'm running Avid. Oh, I should have looked up what version number. It's 8 something. And Final Cut 10. I sort of, with Adobe products personally, I stopped at CS6 because I'm paying the bills.
Right.
And I talked with a bunch of people that I know out there, Adobe people, my After Effects guru. And he's basically said it doesn't make sense for me if I don't use it every day to pay for it.
Sure.
The people who use it every day, obviously, to be in that pool, you have to pay the entrance fee. But for me, there are plenty of other tools that do what I do, and I don't have to pay the monthly fee. So, so actually my very first Final Cut 10 project was, are you familiar with Bill Pohlad? He's a producer. He did 12 Years a Slave and, well, the other big one, I can't remember what it was now. I should have looked that up too before. My very first final, he's local. The Pohlads are a local family. They own a bunch of companies, and then they are clients of independent producers that I work with. So I've done a lot of work for them over the years. They were also clients at my staff job, the 11 billion years ago. And my very first Final Cut project was Bill Pohlad, fade up. He talks for about 40 seconds, fade down, and then figure out how to do a lower third. Because I figured if I couldn't get Final Cut 10 to do that, there was plenty of time to get it done in Avid or Premiere. And it went fine. I had like 3 hours to do it. It went fine. I uploaded it to my client, and it was actually he had been invited to speak at his alma mater, and he wasn't able to go. So this was just his, sorry, I can't be there. His talk to the people in the audience. So it was really a low-key thing. And the only reason we did it was because my producer happened to be at an event he was at that day shooting. And he said, hey, let's get these guys to shoot this because I can't go. So that's my claim to fame right there. My very first Final Cut 10 project was Bill Pohlad.
That's awesome.
That's unbelievable. The rest of us can't say that. My first Final Cut project was me opening it up, looking around, and immediately hitting Apple Q. The thing I love about Deb is like Kylie said, she's from that era in our industry where there's a lot of people who don't really know where video came from. That's all the new people. Deb, you're from the old era where you can run a board. You can run. I mean, you told me you were helping run boards at various industry functions. I mean, you have knowledge that a lot of people today don't even understand what you mean by saying running a board. I mean, if it's not on your keyboard, if it's not an iPad app, I don't know how to do it. And I love the fact that you have a really rich history in this industry.
Well, thank you. And I think it helps me figure things out because the building blocks are the same. Sure. And I have a really good foundation. Yep. And I do remember not knowing what a key was. I'd be in an edit suite, and the editor, when I was an assistant, would say, okay, we're going to key this. And I sort of knew what was going to happen, but I did not in my head know what a key is. I couldn't give you a definition of it. And now, of course, I could do that. I'm not going to, but I could.
Yes, running downstream keyers or doing tape to tape or any kind of live stuff's not for me either. But I admire people who know how to do it. And like I said, you've done everything from nonlinear work to projection mapping. Pretty unbelievable stuff. So, what kind of work do you find in your area? You think it's all corporate work? Is that the kind of work that you find in your area?
There is a lot of corporate work. I'm currently working on 2 different documentaries for 2 different producers. One just sort of came together in the last couple of days, and I probably shouldn't talk about it because I don't really know that much about it yet. So the other one is for a producer that actually found me through one of the online services. I can't remember if it was Mandy or Production Hub, but he just kind of blasted the local editors with, questions about, hey, I've got this documentary. Are you interested at all? And I eventually sent him an email back. It wasn't something that was on the top of my list because it was just one of those, well, it's a documentary and he's not going to have any money and we're not going to, it's not going to be very well planned and all this stuff. And it turns out this guy's actually a pretty good documentary producer. He's originally from Chicago, spent some time in Boston. He worked for, what's the PBS station in Boston? The famous one that everybody knows. Anyway, so he has a pretty good background, and it's a really interesting documentary about WGBH. Thank you, Brett. So he worked there for a little while. So he's, he has chops. He has a background. When he gave me his project, I was a little worried that it was going to be a big mess, but it was actually very well organized, and he'd done a wonderful rough cut that I really just tweaked and did a little bit of color correction and a little bit of fixing on. And now my chair's starting to roll over that way. So he shot a little bit for the 3rd act, and I have those tapes now, and hopefully in the next week, if not this week, next week, I will start pulling interview segments out of that and get that 3rd act finished. And our plan is to submit it for the next Twin Cities Film Festival. So,
oh, nice.
And and this all came, I initially actually had a really wonderful conversation with Steve Audette. And he, before I even started working on this, and he said, these are some of the pitfalls you might find working with documentary. These are the things to look out for. These are the worrisome phrases that you might hear that might say, hey, this might not be a good thing for you. And so, I went in with my eyes open, and I think it's going to turn out to be, a pretty good end product, all things considered.
That's awesome.
That's so great.
We're starting to get... Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say there's all kinds of questions piling up here.
I was going to ask one.
Go ahead.
So you talked about, you're working in all these different styles. How did you, I think Graham had asked this as well, but how did you get started in the field and in the business and to where you are now? How did you get to where you are now?
Well, we could either go back all the way to the beginning or from professional on. I'm not quite.
You choose whichever you would like.
I mean, how did you even get into this industry? I mean, everyone has a very interesting story of how they somehow got into video.
Well, back in high school, we'll go back all the way to 30 years ago. I got into a program called the Mentor Connection, and it was basically for relatively smart kids who were really bored with high school. And the program basically was meant to get kids working with people in all sorts of industries. Oops, I just knocked my microphone there. Get kids involved with professionals in all industries. We had some chemists. We had a lot of computer programmers. We had one girl worked with dolphins at the zoo, all that kind of, very, very wide variety of professions. And when I went in, my thought was film editing, very tactile. I really, that fascinated me, the cutting and the actually making things happen with my hands. And of course, at the time there was some, but there wasn't a tremendous amount of film production happening in the Twin Cities, which I'm from Minneapolis, St. Paul, if we didn't cover that earlier. But there was a lot of video, and the program actually had a connection at the CBS affiliate. So their plan was to get me in and working at that station. But before they sent me there, they wanted me to have a better background in video. So they sent me the local cable station to just get some, again, the building blocks of video. You have to do that up here. The building blocks of video. And so, I would walk in and know things that, most interns should know when walking into a place. But I ended up getting along so well and working so well with the guy at the cable station that I stayed there for my whole mentorship for the whole year.
Wow.
And he's still a dear friend today. And every time I see him, he apologizes for getting me into this business. But so I did that my senior year in high school, and then I got involved in a group of people who made parody videos. And they were in it for the fandom, and I was in it for the video. Even though I was, I had an interest in the fandom, but I was more interested in doing the video. So I did that a couple of years, and then I got into college and did the video program. But I had a double major in art history and video production. So, and that's a very long story. We'll just skip right over that. But when I graduated, I immediately got hired. Well, not immediately. I had an internship that turned into a full-time temporary position when somebody went on maternity leave. And then I freelanced for a while. I got hired working at a news station, 24-hour news station, cutting news overnight, midnight to noon, Saturdays and Sundays.
Wow. That's
and I did that for about a year and realized that, news and I were not quite on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. Nothing against people who are in news. It's just not my thing, not my jam, as the kids say. So I ended up, my mentor from high school got me to go to now it's, I don't remember what they're called now. It used to be the ITVA, International Television Association, and he was involved in the local chapter. So he talked me into going to a meeting, and it was a very cold winter night in February, and I almost turned around and went home because I couldn't find a place to park, and it was cold and it was horrible. But I went, and I ended up meeting someone who was an assistant editor at the post facility where I eventually got hired. And they do this round robin where you say, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, this is, and this gentleman stood up and said, and we're looking for assistant editors. So at the end of the meeting, I turned to my mentor, Chris, and said, okay, introduce me to that guy. So we ended up sitting around after the meeting talking for a while. And after, we talked, he said, I really do think you'll fit in. Bring me a resume tomorrow and I will make sure my boss gets it. So I did that. Hand delivered a resume. Back in the day, you could do that and not get, yelled at. And after I was offered the job, the man who hired me told me eventually that he was actually more interested in my art history background than he was my video production background. Because he said he figured he probably could teach almost anyone how to push the buttons in the right order. But what he couldn't be sure of is whether they knew if it looked good or not.
Interesting.
So and then I also found out many years later that I wasn't the first person for the job. They'd offered it to somebody else and they turned him down. So, but hey, it worked. It worked out.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Because she loves Deb's stories time, and I do too. It's awesome.
So I was there, like I said earlier, I was there for 6 years, and then January 1st, 2000. Oh, this is my big tip for anybody if they go freelance. Do not make your last day the last day of the month. Make it the first day of the next month, because you'll get health insurance for the month.
Very good. Nice.
Although in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal to me, but it was kind of nice to start 2000 as my own boss, start the new millennium. So
So Kylie has a great question. How do you manage your finances as a freelancer, as your own boss? How do you stay afloat over the years while many people fold? And what are you doing to continue to grow?
Kylie's, she's my plant.
Kylie's
Asking
awesome.
all the questions.
Yeah, Steph, we didn't have to write any questions. This is great. I like having
we're
Kylie in here. Need to get her in here more often.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of former coworkers who had gone freelance before me. So I had a lot of people giving me a lot of really good advice. And one of the first things I was told was, when you first go freelance, in order to live the same life that you've been living at your staff job, you want to make 50% more to cover all of the things that the company pays for, you know, insurance and benefits and the extra taxes that you pay and all that, retirement, all that. So that is that really helps when you're trying to figure out what your rate's supposed to be. And there, of course, is the going rate. So you have to know what that is and then figure out where you fit in there. So I got that really good advice on how to market myself, really, is, you know, don't take a really low paying job just to get the job, because if you can't pay your bills, you know, you might as well be saying paper or plastic.
That's true. That is
that's very true.
So, and the other thing that, and I think I figured this out on my own, but I if somebody else did teach me this, I would give them the props on it. But whenever I get paid an invoice, I have an account where I can put half in my business checking account and half in my business money market account. So I'm not spending the tax money.
Right.
So when tax time comes around, there's money in that account to pay for it. Or when health insurance is due, and the reason we do 50% is 30% for taxes, 15% for retirement, and then 5% for other expenses that would, you know, that the employer would pay. Like, that's kind of my equipment fund over the years that, you know, that builds up, and then I can buy my gear out of that. So when the time comes and I've got a big tax bill, I can pay it. And I've had very, very too many sad conversations with other freelancers, not just locally, but around the country of, yeah, I used to do this big job every year and it would always pay me right before taxes were due for this, you know, for this quarter. So I just use that invoice to pay the taxes. And then one year the job doesn't happen and they haven't saved and they have nothing to pay their taxes with.
That is not wise.
So I put the money, you know, that 50% stays. It stays put until it's time to pay the people who that money is for.
That's smart.
It's very smart. Very smart.
We need to do the money market thing, Steph. We're doing everything that Deb's doing. We're not doing the money market thing, though.
I'm going to hire you, Deb, to do.
We're not doing retirement either, though. So that's another problem.
Yeah, well, I do recommend maxing out retirement, as, you know, when you're at a place where you can do that, max it out, because, you know, you guys are still relatively young and that stuff will compound, and it will not take you very long to have, you know, a retirement cushion.
Right. That makes sense.
That's
I'm
cool.
going to hire you, Deb. You're going to be the new CFO.
For real. This is why we love Deb. She's amazing.
So Graham had a question.
Yeah.
He asked, what are your biggest challenges you face today?
Well, staying current is always a challenge, because you never know. So many things come and go. And if you invest yourselves in the things that come and go, that you're wasting your time, even though you could probably apply that knowledge somewhere else. But, you know, picking what is the relevant skills to keep fresh and to not, you know, waste your time.
So for example, you're not necessarily worried about 360 or VR, or you are, or you know, all the new tech that you're talking about, or are you more concerned with dealing with 4K maybe, or what kind of new tech is in your area that you think you need to be worried about, or at least informed about?
I see a future for 360 VR. I think it will have more uses than like the 3D stereoscopic 3D. Mm-hmm. But I still think that the challenge there is people really don't like to wear things on their faces.
True.
So, very true.
And even though, I mean, ever since I was a kid, there was that show, I think the show was called VR with Laurie Singer back in the, I think it was an NBC show back in might have been the 80s even, if not the early 90s. And they did some really great stuff. I mean, that was a fairly futuristic show, considering that the technology was nowhere near what they were portraying.
Right. Sure.
And it brought a lot of interest to the technology. And then even with, did you ever see Caprica, the prequel to Battlestar Galactica? Did you ever watch any of those? They had similar immersive worlds on that show that people would get lost in. And I think that as video games go, video games can be very solitary events for many people. You're just sitting in a room by yourself playing the game. And you might be playing with other people out in the world, but you're alone. So I could see VR making a lot of headway there. But I'm not quite sure how it works in like the live event space.
Right.
Which is where, a lot of my stuff is, or documentaries. I'm not quite sure what VR would bring to a documentary. I mean, what would it add that would make it worth the effort? And there might be, there might be something that I'm just not seeing yet, but those would be the kind of questions hurdles you'd want to overcome.
Right on.
There we go. VR, 1995 with Laurie Singer.
They just don't do TV like that anymore.
They do not.
So for you in your area, are your clients more apt to do something like 4K? I mean, you're doing projection mapping, and that's just crazy resolution. So are they doing 4K there?
That is where most of my large format stuff is happening. It's the projection mapping. Okay. And I haven't done anything full 4K. I've done double wide HD. That's the Silos double wide HD, but we didn't, they only wanted to do two projectors side by side. They didn't want to do a double stack.
So it wasn't a quad, it was a double, right?
Yeah, because that's money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. It. Actually, one of my oldest clients, my oldest freelance clients, we just started doing HD for them about 3 years ago. They didn't see the value in paying for HD for their uses because everything ended up on the web for them. So they were fine with the SD.
The same argument could be made about 4K then. If we're developing for the web, am I going to really pay my editor for 4K storage or shooting or whatever it happens to be? Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself doing a lot of 4K, traditional 4K work that's not projection mapping based, just actual UHD style work?
None yet. Trying to think of who would be the first if I were to guess. And I have a couple independent producer clients who probably would be able to convince their clients that it would be useful, especially if they want to do something really big on a big screen at an event. But then you're getting into, again, more money. You're getting into bigger projectors. You're getting into different screens. You're getting into different, more expensive crews because you need people who know how to do that. It's not the kind of thing you can just have, a guy who's never touched it before walk in and do it to set up for an event like that.
That's true.
Yep.
Although you think like the people we hired at NAB to help set our stuff up, it was clear they had never seen any kind of gear before in their lives. So you saw that with the audio. It was a nightmare. It's like, come on, guys. When you come at the Mac with the screwdriver, you're this is just a bad story. What are you doing with the screwdriver? Get away from my Mac Pro. It's out of control. So Ninja Kitty, Deb can actually read your questions, but I'm going to read it for you. She says, ask Deb how she thinks is best to present corporates with upgrading computers, Wi-Fi, and all the tech things. Or all the things. So how do you convince your corporate people that a computer is not just a computer?
Well, that is definitely a challenge, and I need to work on my own salesmanship on things like that because, it comes down to you have to make it worth their money, worth their time, worth their effort to upgrade. I mean, once you start throwing out gear and putting in new gear, that's time. Mm-hmm. And, people's time is very expensive to them and is very valuable to them. So, I haven't really had to talk too many people into it because I'm usually one level away from the actual corporate clients. You know, I usually have the independent producer or the production company or the staging company between me and the client. So I'm not really in that sales role in trying to upsell stuff.
Do you find yourself walking into antiquated gear to work on, or the NFA is fairly decent for you, or not really?
Oh, for the most part, they're, you know, within a couple of years of being upgraded. I do have one client that has all their regular edit suites for their staff editors are, you know, aces. They're really well maintained. Right. But when they have overflow and they bring in freelance editors, they throw the freelance editors into the back room with the staff's old computers in the back room, in the closet, without proper ventilation and doors that don't close.
That is funny.
And it sort of makes sense in a way. It's, you know, the stuff still has some value. And if you're doing, you know, a rough cut, you don't need a full blown symphony. You don't need a flame. You don't need, you don't need everything. You just need to be able to make cuts. Right. And you could do that on, you know, with the right assistant editor, you could do that in an old Avid on AVR 27 if you wanted to.
Yikes.
You know?
But yes. Wow. Yeah, I haven't been in a facility where they treated their freelancers that coldly, but it's...
Well, and to be honest, to be fair to that client, they got 2 shows that got bought right away, and all of a sudden they had to gear up. And by the time those shows wrapped up, they'd actually bought more space, and they rented more space in their building, and they had expanded, and they made better rooms, but the gear was still the same. But, you know, at least the environment was a lot better. So those first few months, it was just like, oh, we got to gear up for this and get going. We got shows to edit.
Right.
So, and that's how a lot of people end up editing in closets, just out of necessity.
Right on.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I would probably throw a hissy fit and get fired if I had to walk into a gnarly broom closet. Like, no, I don't know why you're showing me this room, but I'm going to Instagram it and I'm going to bounce.
To a certain degree, it's smile and take their money when you're freelance.
Sure.
It's like, you can put up, not having a boss, I can put up with a lot of stuff that I might not have put up with if I were on staff. You know, I am in charge, and I certainly can walk away, and I have decided that, you know, this working situation is not optimal for me. We don't work together as a, you know, client vendor relationship just isn't working for me. So I think we're done. And I've done that, not too many times, but, you know, I have, in theory, fired clients. So, you know, nothing ugly, none of that you're fired, but just, you know.
No walking away with an explosion behind you? None of that?
Oh, that would be nice.
That would be awesome.
Do you find that hard? Like, do you find it hard to do that, to fire clients and sort of move on? Or like, if you had a freelancer here listening, is it always, should you always take the job, or do you get to be selective and choose depending on facility and stuff like that?
Well, there's selective, and there's the caveat of don't burn bridges. And especially, you know, Minneapolis and St. Paul, we are a pretty small community. So you can't burn too many bridges before all of a sudden you can't get across the river anymore, you know?
Right.
So, and of course, Minnesota Nice, which Kylie brought up earlier, I think, is, you know, you don't really want to piss anybody off, you know, it's just, but so you have to do it with the, diplomatically is really the way to do it. You know, what was it say? Diplomacy is telling someone to go to hell, and they actually, are looking forward to the trip.
Right.
You know? Or, you know, or if it's just one of those cases of, I'm just not the right person to work with you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I know this other editor who's really good. You know, he might even have been someone who trained me. I've actually done that. I've said, what you really want is you want this guy, or you want this lady, you know, she or he would be a much better fit for you, you know?
So cool.
And then you end up, you know, getting referrals from that. So
Right. You end up being a rock star for still solving their problem. That's awesome. I love that.
yeah.
So I've asked every guest on this show this question, and I would like to ask you as well. Right now, we're in the greatest time to be alive in video, as far as I'm concerned. I'm grateful for where I came from. I used to cut on tape to tape. I love old feature films. I love optical. Digital is great, but you can now, as a 16-year-old, tell your story, go on YouTube, and have make your own brand and have 1 million followers. When I was making movies back in the day, it was whoever would watch your VHS tape, and that was after they saw the first one, they weren't going to sit through the second. So do you believe that it's important to go to film school now, or some kind of a communications course, or some kind of a program now, when you could probably get away with learning everything online for free?
Well, I think the thing you learn at film school that you can't learn very easily on your own is how to work with a team.
For sure.
Yep.
And actually, funny this should all come up today. I spent the better part of today trying to figure out how to digitize a VHS tape of a college half-hour show called Art Beat that I produced with some classmates in 1991. And it was a comedy of errors trying to get that VHS into the system. But we finally got it. And I'm sitting there looking at the credits, scrolling by, and one of my favorite human beings on the planet is one of my best friends now that I met in that class. And he and I have been working together for 25 years. He's also, he actually worked at the same staff job. He was our flame operator for a while. And then he went freelance, and then I went freelance, and we still work with a lot of the same clients together. And I bring him in to do graphic stuff as often as I can, because there's a certain point where, I know that my After Effects or my motion skills are not going to give the client what they want. So we're going to pay somebody who does that every day to do that. And without school, I wouldn't know Joe, and I wouldn't have that opportunity. So I think the relationships that you make in college or in film school can serve you for your entire career. But that's not the only place you can get them. But it certainly is a lot easier because you're with a group of people who are there for the exact same reason.
Yep.
So your pool of people to choose from for who you want to work with is very specific. It's kind of, in a way, it's like going to NAB versus going to a super meet.
Mm-hmm.
NAB brings in people from everywhere, all facets of the industry. Super Meet is very focused on post.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, Rampant Design, more of your customers are going to go to the Super Meet.
Oh, for sure.
That's a concentrated group, or the Media Motion Ball, for that matter. Those groups where post people are concentrated makes it much easier to find the people who you're looking for.
Yep.
So I think, in my case, I probably wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't gone through the program that I did. But that doesn't mean I still wouldn't be here.
Right.
I might not be right here in this chair right now talking to you. But I might have still, found another way to get in.
Oh yeah, I mean, determination is everything. But I agree with you. I'm glad I went to a film school. But what I feel bad about now is kids graduating right now have just an alarming amount of debt.
Yeah.
And what they're paying a starting editor is mind blowing. What they're making now, I never made that low when I started. So I can't fathom making just above a water park operator. Or a McDonald's. I'm not mocking this. I can't believe what they're trying to pay these people who have to have so what are you supposed to do? You live with mom and dad while you try to establish your career? I mean, I just don't know. So I'm torn. I hate to see all these kids in debt. I really do. I really hate to see all these kids in debt.
I think the road might be longer because it's going to take you a lot longer to find the people. And the difference in income in 5 years versus to get to where you want to be versus 10 years, if just to make the math easy, what is that worth? And that is math that each individual probably has to do for themselves. How much does their program cost? Can they do a community college program for the first 2 years and then get into the 4-year program? Can they do transfers? Are there ways to do it more cost effectively to still get into that program? Because go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I totally lost my train of thought. So what does Katie say?
I apologize. Katie said that she's now seeing people are requiring degrees, and that's wild. Have you ever been asked to show your degree for a gig?
Well, I haven't really looked for a job since the early 90s.
Right. I hear you.
So that actually, but I do know I have another friend who relocated and did have a really hard time finding a job. It took her over a year because she had an associate's degree, and every place she applied for editing positions wanted bachelor's. So she did. I mean, and she was probably overqualified for a significant portion of those jobs, considering what she had been doing before. But because she didn't have that degree, she couldn't even get an interview.
Wow.
So there is that to consider.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. I think that, coming out of high school, you have so much knowledge on the internet with YouTube and Vimeo, and you have, these great filmmakers who are making content and showing you how to make content. And then the part of, well, do I need to have a degree because, when you're coming out of high school, you don't know where you're going. You don't know, what you want to do, but you don't know who's going to hire you or anything like that. So if you were giving advice to somebody coming out of high school with your knowledge, even as being a freelancer now, what would you say to them? Would you say that college is the right way, or would you say kind of price it out kind of a thing, and then decide if maybe freelancing would be the place to go? So what advice would you give to a high schooler coming out and saying, I'm going to go into film?
Well, yeah, it really depends on each individual situation. And I think you probably, the right kid with the right drive could probably teach themselves what they need to know and do great work. But there are other people that they need the rules, they need the assignments, they need to be told, what is good, what is not good, how to make what's not good better. They need the guidance, and you can't get that from YouTube or.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's a really tough answer to come up with, just because every kid is so different.
Right.
So Chris brings up a really cool concept here. He says that you need to learn how to tell a story. Now, I went to film school. Mm-hmm. That was only glazed upon. I learned that on the job training. My mentors taught me what I know today about everything, about visual effects, about editing. Film school got my foot in the door, but I didn't learn the real craft. I didn't start honing the craft until my very first day on the job. Do you feel the same way, or do you feel that you were well prepared to just attack the world when you graduated?
Well, the storytelling, I actually feel like my program, because we were tape to tape, VHS, and 3/4 inch. There were no effects. Right. So that's all we could do was tell a story. We were not learning how to, to make cubes fly back when cubes were cool.
Right.
We were not learning the latest tech because we didn't have the latest tech. So we weren't falling back on, if you can't solve it, dissolve it, because that wasn't even an option.
Nice.
We did have one kid. We had two 3/4 inch controller modules, and I don't know how he did it, but one of the kids rigged it up so we could actually control through the switcher, and we did a dissolve tape to tape, but it was this really jerry-rigged craptastic thing. And it was pretty amazing that we could make a dissolve in the edit suite. We didn't have to do it in the studio.
Right. Dave brought up a good point. The next generation, they're not going to college for this. They're self-taught, but they're also branding themselves. He's talking about making top YouTubers, top Viners, top Instagrammers, top Snapchatters. These kids are making upwards of $100,000 or more a year, being their own brand. Well, I think what we're all talking about is being a gun for hire. There's a big difference. If you wanted to create your own content, be your own director, you don't need formal training. But like you said,
yeah. When you are your own client, or your audience is your client instead of your your boss or your client, when the people writing the checks are in charge, it's a whole different conversation. When the people paying your bills
right,
are the ones you're making the content for. When you're, no audience member in YouTube is paying that YouTube person's invoice.
Right.
It's coming from ad revenue.
Right.
So it's again that's a whole different universe. And
right.
And the other thing I think you do learn working with groups is teamwork and how to get along. And when you do have a discrepancy or a disagreement, how to solve it without blowing up the world. I think that's, those are very, very valuable skills in being able to just work with other human beings. And
cut to Deb flipping over an edit table and walking away.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Just flip over the edit. Yeah.
Nice. So I see. I like your perspective. No one has mentioned that. Everyone else had a incredibly different response, and so I like that. If you want to be a gun for hire, if you want to work for clients and develop content for others, the route you're going still makes the most amount of sense.
I think so. One of the projects that Joe and I did together in college was a history video for one of the local historical houses that the Minnesota Historical Society runs. And it was the, welcome to the Sibley House, and this is what you're going to see kind of thing. And just over the weekend, there was an article in the paper that they have a new director at that place. And I sent Joe a text message and said, hey, think they're still using our video? So that project was designed for us in college to learn how to work with clients. Because that's another big thing, is that a lot of people coming out of school or just, getting into the pool don't really realize how important it is to be able to handle working with clients who may not have the same vision you do, but they're, again, still writing the checks. So it doesn't matter whether you agree with them or not. They get what they want.
Right.
Yep. That makes sense.
That's the whole smile and take their money thing. It's it wouldn't be the way I'd do it if I were in charge, but I'm not in charge. I'm just cashing the checks, and I want to keep cashing checks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're hired laborers. I mean, we're deck builders, I don't care if your deck is hideous, but I'll build it for you. I don't care. I'm going to go home and laugh at you, but I'm also going to take that check.
I'm laughing at you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many clients have asked me to do the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, yeah, this isn't going on the reel. Who cares? The money's the money. So what do you say to the new generation coming in who are willing to slash each other's throats to get a gig?
Well, you're going to have a short career.
For sure.
If undercutting never works, if you can't support yourself and you're just, you're taking any job at any price just to get the work, but you can't actually pay your bills on that, you're not going to have a career.
Right.
So you're not, you're just taking the slow route to your next career.
I like that.
So
I like that. That's good.
I'm usually in the parking lot slashing their tires, but that's a whole different thing. So when working in a group environment, do you find that, those are people, let me back this up. Everyone who knows you knows you're a guru. So if I were to be lucky enough to work on your team, I would just sit there and watch you work, because I feel like I can learn something from everybody. So I'm just going to start stealing your chops and putting it in my bag of tricks. But what do you do when you find that one person who clearly is not a team member and they're throwing you under the bus to the client? Or has that ever happened to you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's happened. Again, it's back to the burning of the bridge. It's in each situation's different. It's what does my ego say? Because I do have one, and I do like to be liked, but I like to be respected more than I like to be liked. So if somebody's going to throw me under the bus to cover their own butt, I really have to take stock in what else that person offers me. And, can my ego take it to protect that person because there's still a future? But if that person's going to keep doing that, then, adios. You want me to do something illegal because I've told you 3 times you can't download stuff off of the internet that has, I don't know, network logos on it and use it because that's the idea you sold your client, because that's the same idea you've had for years, and I keep telling you we can't do that, then you just kind of walk away. Mm-hmm. So
you're a lot.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I know every people in here who are my Facebook friends. I had a very fun phone call the other day from a customer. How is being female and being a woman in a very male-dominated industry, how has that affected you, and how do you see it affecting others as well, as far as, day-to-day and then getting jobs since you're a freelancer and all that stuff?
Well, let me tell you. I don't know for certain that I have been discriminated against because I'm female. I know I was discriminated against because I was young. They might have been both excuses, both reasons, but I don't know for sure. And my solution when it happens is you're never going, and your story is just ridiculous, and there aren't words for that. So I can't answer to what you just went through. But for me, when I come across someone who just can't deal, I walk away and find somebody who can. I'm never going to change those people. They're never going to go, oh, hey, that one lady, she knows her stuff, so therefore I'm going to stop being a jerk to other ladies.
Right.
It's just, what we really need to do is work on the upcoming generation, right? For sure. And make sure they know that it doesn't matter. And I am actually in debt. I have a lot of gratitude for the women who came before me, because they did pave the way. But unfortunately, actually, some of the people who've been bad to me were other women.
Yeah.
And that is almost as unfathomable to me as what happened to you the other day, Steph. But I think part of it is the women who paved the way for me still weren't editors. They were still more in the, I want to call them support roles, but they were in the non-technical roles. And they may have wanted to be in more technical roles, but they couldn't get there. But by being where they were, they cracked the surface and allowed the people in my generation to get in. Yeah. But then there was some resentment. And that resentment turned into being treated poorly. One of them patted me on the head and told me not to worry my pretty little head about these things.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like it's the whole senior freshman thing, when the seniors were as freshmen were bullied and made fun of and treated poorly. So when they're seniors, then they can do the same thing to the freshmen. And I wish it would stop. I wish that there was a line that everyone, no matter what your gender is, just everyone just says enough is enough. We're all doing the same thing. We're just working. We're just trying to, pay bills and have a life. So why all the hostility? Why all the negative? Why? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it just needs to change.
And I think we can, if we work on the generation coming up and make it not an issue, and then they can, but I don't think you can really change, those folks need to retire. That's how it will change.
Please, I can't wait for that generation to go away.
But not all of them, because there were a lot of fabulous people, 20 years my senior, who really, mentors and editors that I was an assistant to, both male and female, that, were nothing but helpful and supportive of me. So not the entire generation needs to retire, just a certain subset.
Yeah, the crotchety old white dudes. The next old dude who calls up and calls Stephanie princess or sweetheart or sugar, I'm going to reach through the phone and just go sever their head from their body.
Now that technology I could get behind. Let's learn that technology.
Let's kickstart that now. Let's get it going. On a similar level, if you found yourself in a situation where you saw a man or another woman talking down to a younger editor, would you console them? Would you tell that person to knock it off, or would you talk to them privately? What would you do, having said what you just said?
Well, again, every situation is different. I am not necessarily a call someone out in public kind of person, and that is the root of Minnesota Nice. Mm-hmm. So I probably would talk to the offender in private and explain to them why that's not cool. And I would probably go talk to the offendee. Right? Is that? Am I doing that right?
Sure, yes, that works. That works.
And just say, don't sweat it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Either if I had a story to tell, I'd share, or if I just, this is why this person was off base, you're doing fine, whatever, just build that person up. And hopefully, whatever the other person did to tear them down didn't destroy the foundation. It's the Foundation Podcast.
I love that. Okay, so you're lucky enough to be married to someone who's also in the industry, so they understand your crazy schedules and the nonsense that you deal with. Mm-hmm. How would you explain to someone who's not in that situation, who is with someone who doesn't understand our industry and thinks we're either A, lying, or B, not willing to just grow a spine and say enough is enough, I'm going home?
Well, there's posters that say, the rain woman, lady looking out the window, never marry an editor.
Yes.
I've been seeing those since the 80s. So it's a very well-known fact. However, one of my things is post doesn't have to not stop. The hashtag post don't stop. Mm-hmm. I actually work very hard to not let it overcome my life. And sometimes I fail. Sometimes I fail spectacularly. But my husband and I did meet working. We met on site at a live event for IBM at the San Jose Convention Center. So, we kind of knew what we were getting into. Because we're both in similar ends of the industry. So, but still, when he's gone for 3 out of 4 weeks, that good thing we have, FaceTime now, because I don't forget what his face looks like.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke, but that's not easy. It's just not easy.
So what do you do to unwind? Like, what do you do to break away from the editing together or by yourself?
Well, by myself, a couple of years ago, probably 4 years ago now, I got into weaving. Like warp, weft, loom, and of course, I just found out at the end of my last class how my whole world is still coming full circle. We can talk about that when we. But I wanted to have some skill that didn't require electricity. Basically, I just wanted to do something with my hands that wasn't, technology. I used to say that I didn't want to use technology, so I wanted to do something with my hands. So it was, and I got into weaving, and basically I make scarves and one baby blanket. So it's not very intricate, but it's something to do. That's just physical, moving. I mean, not out running, but you can't go to the gym more than 4 times a week for me anyway. So, it's just another thing to do. But the thing that I learned was that the first computer programs were written for looms.
Really?
Yeah.
It was loom automation.
Yes, it was loom automation. The first computer programs were for loom automation. When it was, really punch cards, And it was manual computing with punch cards, and that's how they would program the looms to make the patterns. So even though I tried to do that to get away from technology, it's actually the first technology.
So you got stuck in it no matter what.
Just when you think you're getting out, they pull you back in.
They pull you back in. That's right.
So do you ever? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you along that line with the Mister as well as he's known very well on the internet. What do the two of you do together to carve out any kind of time? I mean, post is fun. Don't get me wrong, but your relationship with him is by far more important than editing.
Well, we should do more than just, house upkeep. And there's a lot of stuff happening in my office right now, which is over here, and it's a total disaster. Getting stuff rewired and replaced and all. So we spend a lot of time doing stuff around the house and in the office, and a lot of shopping. A lot of running to Home Depot.
Hey, at least you're not in front of the machines.
We do watch Game of Thrones together. So
boy, was that last episode so boring.
Have not watched it yet, so no spoilers.
I won't. What? It's the best.
There are no spoilers.
The best nap I've ever gotten. I'll tell you that. Good gracious. So Graham wants to pull us back into post talk real quick.
Okay.
He says, do you have a favorite go-to plugin?
Favorite go-to plugin? Well, it depends on what problem I'm trying to solve. I did just use the Rampant flash and flare transitions in my last project I did the other day. So
woo.
That was
I feel like we have to send you a check now or something. Thank you.
I used Rampant music too in that one, as a matter of fact. So
sweet.
Well, sorry, now I forgot the go-to plugin.
Go-to plugin, yeah.
Well, I guess one of the first things I try to do on everything, once the cut is finished, is to white balance. So Colorista has a white balance eyedropper. However, I still think the best one ever, the best one, not best, the most intuitive one was in the old Final Cut Classic. It was just, here's your shot. This is white. And if you could get the white of somebody's eye, that was, you could white balance anything off the whites of somebody's eye, which is pretty damn amazing.
That is amazing.
I don't have as much luck with that technique with some of the other white balancing tools, but I usually use the Colorista, as they have the easiest access to it. But I really would, So I think getting colors to look right gets overlooked a lot. It's like, because stuff's on auto and you just get it and you run and you gun and you get the shot and you're done. but then you have to make it look good. And I've actually had a couple live event producers who've seen a lot of video on a lot of big screens have actually told me, I know when I'm getting stuff from you that it's going to look good and it's going to sound good because you pay attention to those details. And I do think it's the color correction that I do. And it's just basic. It's just getting things back to center. And then if you want to warm it up or cool it down or whatever, you do that depending on what the feel you need to have, but to just get everything to not be too hot or too cold, or, if it was fluorescent lights versus tungsten lights versus sodium vapor lights, if you have all those different kind of lighting in your B-roll, then it's just every time you change locations, it's just it changes the feel of the piece. So I try to make it neutral to start, and then change it for the mood that we need. So
The reason I'm sorry during your story that I laughed, but the Mister made me literally laugh out loud. I didn't expect to see the don't white balance until you see the whites of their eyes. I'm glad I wasn't drinking anything at the time because it would be all over the monitor right now. And then Monica Seth would be angry with me.
No nasal lavage.
Yes. No aqua on the gear, por favor. So what you run your own business, so that's different than freelancing. We should all address that. You are responsible for corporate taxes and your company in addition to working for other clients. What would you tell 21-year-old Deb about running your business? Or would you say, hey, stick to working corporate or stick to working staff? Or would you say, no, just keep your head down and keep going the way we're going? What would you tell 21-year-old Deb?
Oof, that's a good question. Well, the most money I ever made in a year was the year I worked less on other people's equipment and more on my own equipment. Was obviously because you get to charge more. You get to charge for using the gear too. And I would definitely make sure 21-year-old Deb knew that you charge for gear. I've talked to a lot of people. Well, I have a Mac and I have Final Cut 10 or I have iMovie. I've had people tell me that. I already have that. It just doesn't cost me anything. And I'm like, yeah, but eventually you're going to have to replace it and that will cost you something. So you need to charge for your gear. Just because you have it doesn't mean it didn't cost you to get it in the first place. And if you want to upgrade or if you want upkeep or you want to keep going or you want to grow, you have to charge for that equipment. So I think, the difference between freelancing and working on other people's gear and owning your own business and owning your own gear. I mean, I walk both those worlds. I have clients where I go and work on their gear for significantly less than I charge clients to work on my gear in my office. So,
we had a guest on last week who mentioned that he was in a similar situation and feels that he can't compete at the rates that are going around town. So he's decided to shift directions and start a whole new thing. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like, wow, these rates are getting to the point where it's ridiculous? Or have you carved yourself a niche where your clients trust you and that's not really an issue?
Well, I think I have, but it doesn't mean you're always going to have those clients.
Right.
Those clients can disappear in a heartbeat. And that has happened to me several times over my course of my career is, clients can leave through absolutely no fault of your own. You can do everything right and they can love you and want to work with you, but it ends up, they get bought, somebody retires or, a series doesn't get renewed. There's tons of reasons why you'd end up not getting to work with these same people. And it's not your choice. It's not their choice. It just happens. So putting all your eggs in one basket that would be another thing to tell 21-year-old Deb, diversify your client base.
Nice. Very smart.
But in a way, I do agree. And actually right now I am pursuing an advanced graduate degree because I need to find a way to offer more services to my clients other than editing, because I don't necessarily see editing full-time as a way to make money for the remainder of my career. So what I'm looking at doing is getting into archiving, which is, plays into my own interests. But also as an editor, I have access to all this. I have 15 years of other people's stuff. So I have access to this media that people may want.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe. I'm thinking if I could come up with a way to make it more, the cost of the equipment's coming down, the cost of the software is coming down, and my 30 years of knowledge, I think will make me a fast archivist, which then makes that cheaper too. Because if I can do it faster, I can charge them less. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do, to expand the services I can offer my clients to include, archiving. So when I'm in a slow edit phase, I can hop over and start doing some archiving for this client. Have a banker's box full of stuff and just, work my way through it in the slow times.
I love that. I also love that on top of everything you're doing, you're going to school again. That can't be easy.
Well, I started very slow. I've done 2 semesters, 1 class each. So that was helpful to start that way. And I'm going to I'm working in a Master's of Library and Information Science program at one of the local small colleges or university, St. Catherine University. Sorry, they changed their name. It was the College of St. Catherine when I was back doing my undergrad. So I have to throw off the old name. So, and I'm studying technically library science, but I'm in the archives track. And my last class was an archives class, which is what I did. My final project for that class was a video.
Nice.
Nice.
So that was nice. I didn't have to write a paper.
That's a lovely thing right there.
So
we need to hire you when you're done, because we've got a couple, or non 400 terabytes worth of data right now.
Yeah.
We can work on something.
And I have no idea where anything is.
Nope.
I love the idea, though, that you're going back to school. You're finding another thing you can, a legitimate service you can offer your client. And because you're an editor, you understand how the archive needs to happen. So very few people are going to be able to even come near you in terms of competing with you with that, because how many editors do you know are legitimately going to learn archival? And I don't mean backing up to a hard drive. I mean legitimate archival,
Oh, yeah. And, archiving for what I do as an editor is much different than archiving for posterity.
Right.
And, and I have, the cabinet behind me here, I have DVDs full of project archives and for clients over the years. And those would not be sufficient for an actual archive of their corporate, their media legacy, let's call it. And actually the class I'm registered for next semester is a metadata class. And I don't have the prerequisite done yet. So I had to write and send an email to the professor to try to get a waiver, because I won't have the prerequisite done. And I basically said, I've been dealing in metadata for almost 30 years. We just called it logging.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, what's your favorite TV show or movie?
Oh, well, depends on what era we're talking about. I am one of the original Star Wars kids. I was 7. Saw the original Star Wars in a double feature with Logan's Run in 1977 in a drive-in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And so I have I have that 7-year-old's wonder of Star Wars. And so that, I guess that probably has to be my favorite film. Though I do have another soft spot for Wizard of Oz.
Very cool. Yep.
So,
did either of those make you want to become a filmmaker or work in video?
I don't think, to be honest, if there was a moment that I remember going, this is what I want to do for my career, it actually was, I almost missed my plane to London when I was doing study abroad, because MTV was playing Duran Duran's Burning the Ground video, which is fairly obscure song for them. So a lot of people wouldn't know it if they're not diehard Duran Duran fans. But it basically was, the song Burning the Ground is a mishmash of pulling in sounds and lyrics from a bunch of songs and making it into a song. It's a mashup of Duran Duran songs by Duran Duran. And the video is very much the same, but there was a lot of pulling in news articles and magazine articles and appearances on television and just, all of these disparate sources and making this video work. And I was standing in our living room watching that video, just enthralled by it. And my mom's standing there going, we have to go to the airport now. You have to go to the airport now. So, and I think that watching that video is where I first really, and of course I was in college at the time, so I knew more about the industry from school. But, you know, that's what I first started to see how you can take these things and make it. I mean, it was really starting to really bloom in my head that day. So
that's great.
So if anybody from Duran Duran's watching this and you need an archivist because you have all of this awesome video, I am uniquely qualified.
We need to make this happen. We need
to make this happen.
We're going to start a Twitter campaign, and we're going to get Duran Duran to do this for you.
Of course, something also I would be uniquely qualified for would be to archive Prince's vault, since I'm local.
That would be a heck of a gig. That would be awesome.
Be amazing.
Well, I mean, rumor has it he's got enough for 100 more albums or something obscene like that we've never even heard.
Mm-hmm. That's so they say.
And he shot music videos for these songs as well. That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. I did get to work on one Prince video in my career, but he was not really involved. Although I did get the rules if he did show up. I know the rules of what you're supposed to and not supposed to do. I won't get into the details of that, but they did a special edit of The Most Beautiful Girl in the World for BET, and we did that in one of our edit suites, and I was the assistant editor on that job. So that's my closest I ever got to Prince.
That's awesome.
That's really close. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, half the people in the town have actually worked with him, so I'm on a short list of people who haven't.
That's wild. Do you find that we're getting close enough to the time where you could work remotely, or is everyone still really wanting you to be physically at their location?
Actually, last year, except for my one local client that it's an independent producer that I've been working with forever. None of my other clients were in Minnesota. Nice.
Love that.
So
are you using any collaborative software? I mean, that seems to be the new thing now. Everyone's jumping on a collaboration app.
A lot of stuff gets passed around through Dropbox.
Okay.
I've tried incorporating Whipster with some clients, and some love it. I used it with one client out in Chicago, and after one upload, he's like, "I'm spoiled." You know, because we had done a revision, and I asked him, "Do you want to keep using Whipster, or do you just want me to do it the way we had been doing it?" So, "Oh no, I'm spoiled now. It has to be the Whipster." And so he loves that. But I've had other clients who I send them the information about it, and they just can't parse. And it's as much as Whipster is very intuitive, some people just can't.
And Whipster's the easiest of them all. I mean, if they can't get Whipster, they would never get Frame or anything else. I mean,
yeah. So I've not personally used Frame.io, but I have been sent Frame.io links for things to watch. Mm-hmm. But I have not really. It's not been a participatory. So that's pretty much a YouTube link at that point for me.
Nice.
Right.
So does anybody else have any questions? We got some great questions from the audience. Looks like we lost Kylie. Sorry, Kylie.
Aw.
But Katie's still here, so woo. And Chris is here, and Graham is here. Anybody have any questions? Or Brent, you never talk, man. You always lurk. I'm gonna have to bust you on that a little bit. kind of always lurking in the corner, and then you write me the next day. It was such a great show. I'm like, dude, come on, participate, man. It's awesome that you're here, Katie.
Brent's doing his Fraser Crane impersonation. I'm listening.
Brent's awesome, but we have to get him on the show. But this show is a billion times better now that Deb's been on it. So you're upping our game.
Again, you're going to make me blush. Stop.
Well, I mean, come on. NAB is a nightmare, and vendors that help vendors are terrible. The unions are awful, and you were very kind and dealt with a lot of stuff that, we wouldn't. At the last minute, we didn't have audio, and they were like, what do you mean the Mac Pro doesn't have an audio in? It's like, you should know this. It's not a new machine. And so you were very kind and cordial and gracious, and you're one of the nicest people we've ever met. And you've always been great to us. Yes, Deb scarves are awesome. You need to start debscarves.com because everybody wants one.
I think I have 2 that are unspoken for at the moment, and I have one commission happening for my mother.
Nice.
Nice.
Hey, it doesn't matter who it is. Commission's a commission.
No, she was, a lady at church was admiring the scarf I had made for her, and so she decided she wanted to give her friend at church a scarf that I had made.
Nice.
So
yeah, Brent wants you to make rampant scarves. I think we have to pay a royalty structure for something like that.
Oh, could I make an art? I probably could. I probably could make a. You need to send me colors. I need to know what the colors are. Does rampant black and white? That's it.
That's
all about the high
Sean's go-to
contrast.
color.
It's all about the high
Black and white.
contrast. Green's cool, but I'd be afraid you just key it out, so. But do you find that helps you relax? I mean, I know everyone in Minnesota is the nicest people on the planet, but does that help you get some of your frustrations out? Because look, let's be honest. I don't care who you are in this industry. You're going to have a client or a producer talk down to you to the point where it insults your very core, and we all handle it differently. I live in the land of swamps because you can get rid of clients very easily, no problem. So that's another reason to live in Vegas. The desert's right outside the city. End of story. But do you find that knitting or something else that really helps you?
Yeah, it did. It's a way to disconnect, and it's a way to to unplug and focus on something that is fairly technical is not the right word, but it is, but it's not. But it is, but it's not. There are certain things about it that you have to be precise with. Otherwise, it's just a big, ugly, jumbled mess. So, and it requires brain, but it doesn't require an editor brain. So it's nice to be able to, decouple the editor brain and do something else. Yeah. But then it doesn't get tedious. Well, I guess it kind of does get tedious because it's the exact same thing back and forth and back and forth. Oh, am I up or am I down? Or am I up or am I down? So that was a weaving joke that nobody else is going to get.
Sorry. I got called out the other day by Kylie, actually, for calling her, was it crochet or I called it the wrong thing, and everyone looked at me like I was an idiot, so I just don't talk about fabric of any kind.
Well, I can't crochet and I can't knit. I've tried to teach myself both. And that's actually a whole different, I am in awe of people who can do that. So I did knit a Doctor Who scarf in high school.
That is awesome.
So, nice.
But again, scarves are easy.
Do you find that everyone needs something like that? I mean, some people do coloring, some people have a rock garden, some people meditate. I mean, for me, if I didn't have Steph in my life, I would probably have jumped off something tall. There's a lot of anxiety in this job. There's a lot of being alone in this job. I mean, this is one of the loneliest jobs ever. And, it doesn't matter what awesome project you're working on. I've experienced the ultimate lows and the ultimate highs in this field. And how do you kind of level yourself back out?
Well, I do think it's the finding life within the chaos. Yeah, and I was so going somewhere with that, and it was going to be just beautiful. But
you can cut it in if you want.
Dream sequence.
What happened?
Diversity in your interests brings diversity to your work. So, even with the weaving, I'm finding I will take pictures of the patterns I'm making, and I have a textures library of
so awesome.
Things I've woven, and I don't think I've ever actually really used it in a client project, and maybe I'll challenge myself by the end of the year, get one of my weaving photos into the background of something, and I do like when we're traveling and I'm taking photographs. I take texture photographs. I think I sent one to you once, Steph. I took a picture of some rust and I sent it to you, thinking of you. Not because it's rust, but because it was a cool texture.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification.
I realized as it was tumbling out of my mouth that probably would be one of those things that if I didn't explain myself would be taken wrong. And I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings because I'm Minnesota nice. But for a while, my goal was to take pictures that didn't need to be cropped.
Nice.
If I'm going to frame them, I'm an editor. So my frame is the frame. So I'm going to take pictures that don't need to be cropped. So it's just bringing variety into your life brings variety into your work. And that makes the work less tedious. And if you work in chaos all the time, when there really is a true emergency, where do you go?
Right.
Yep.
That was actually, not all news people are like this, and not all news places are like this. But that was the thing about news, that there is a fundamental, everything is, it's happening. It's right now. When you have to roll out the disaster desk 3 times in a month.
Right.
When you're always working right up to 100, when you actually have a crisis, where's your reserve? So I've actually sort of striven over the years to bring that down, to always do my best work, but to do my best work at 80%. So when I need it, it's there. You can kick it up when it needs to happen.
Love that.
But don't plan for it. Don't plan to be up here all the time, because that is where burnout comes from.
Yeah.
And you guys have roller coasters. So
I swear by coaster therapy. There's very few occasions as an adult that you can go scream in public and not go to jail. And so that's why coasters are awesome. You can act a fool and you're not going to, if I stand in Walmart and I start screaming obscenities, I'm definitely going to explain my actions to a judge, So, but
it's where you get your frustrations at the.
Absolutely.
That's
the more it goes upside down or backwards, the better, it's just like, it's either that or go off on somebody on I-4 on the freeway, and that never ends well. So, but I agree with what you said about operating in chaos. I have a client that's all they do, and Stephanie actually orchestrated me firing them, and I passed them on to somebody we all know. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little social lubricant either. I don't
know. I might be running a little low.
Got to get another one. I wish we had known. We would all brought one. Walter made what is it? Margaritas.
Yeah, margaritas.
Eric brought whiskey. I didn't know you were bringing a beer. We would have.
It's actually cider. So
Angry cider.
Angry Orchard. I think I'll get a royalty check for that too.
You should go. Angry Orchard. That's delicious cider.
So, it was easy. It was in the refrigerator and didn't have to mix anything. So,
love that. Love that. Yep. So, does anybody have any last questions for Deb? She's been incredibly generous with her time. We did not know it was going to go this long. We love spending time with Deb. She's awesome. She's one of the few people who were kind to us from the very beginning. And she will always have a special place in our hearts as a result of that. Most people were not nice to us from the beginning, so we cherish the ones that have been nice.
Yep, that's very true. Thank you, Deb, for being able to come.
Yeah, we can't thank you enough for taking time out and being on the show. And I know the show's unorganized and that's deliberate, but
I know
it drives some people a little bit weird. But we thank you so much for this. It's awesome to talk to you. Everybody has an amazing story, and that's the point of this.
Check this out.
Nice.
I have an audience.
I love that.
It's so great.
So, this is kind of like royalty here. She had a lighting director, an audio mixer, and now she's got an assistant handing her fresh beer.
Cider.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, cider.
This is a different flavor.
Oh, you should definitely yell at your assistant for changing up the flavors without knowledge, without notice.
I can't be too upset. I bought the box of variety pack.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, everybody who joined on the show. Those of you I don't know, thank you so much. It's awesome.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Makes this incredible. You can watch this starting probably tonight or tomorrow morning if you missed it. We do the show at every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. and then it goes on the Rampant Live afterwards.
Somebody said you guys are booked through October already.
We are. Speaking of which, Katie, got to get you on the show. Really want to get you on the show. Try to get Kylie on the show, but her 9 assistants, I couldn't get through to them yet. So one day, but definitely want to get you on the show, Katie. Everybody else, like I said, everybody has a story, and I want to hear everybody's story. We're all on very similar paths, but Facebook and Twitter are very two-dimensional. And of course, all we're doing is complaining about Adobe or this thing, or who cares? At the end of the day, these are just tools. There are real legitimate people behind all these profiles. So I just want to get to know every single one, and we love and adore Deb, and I'm glad that we could bring you on the show, get you on the show, and have people hear how amazing you are firsthand.
Oh, thank you. And you guys do great work for the community too. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure that my business would be where it is if it wasn't for Rampant Design and the other companies like you. I think you and I had that conversation a really long time ago, that there was a time when you were my graphics department, Sean.
That means the world to us. It really does. And we're grateful. And obviously, if there's ever anything you need, just hit us up and we'll make it for you. Yep. And I can't thank you enough for using our stuff too. I mean, it's so great to see people use our stuff and use it properly. Thank you so much for not reading us. Yes. We just got an email from somebody who said I used all 500 flares in this project from the flare volume, and we were like, what? Why?
I might, use 2 or 3 and alternate, right. But right. that's even overkill for me. So
yeah, and they asked us to share the video, and I'm like, I will, but not in the context that you think. So. But no, thank you so much. And,
yes, thank you very much.
Actually, I did get a request for it was really an RFP to do the same Set an Executive on Fire that I did in the demo at NAB. Somebody else wanted to do that same concept. So, and without the rampant film and smoke, that kind of thing doesn't happen. So it's a popular
and you
style.
did a heck of a job, and you did it in Final Cut. That's just brutal. Just brutal. I would much rather do it in Microsoft Paint. It's just not right. Just not right.
Oh, well, sweetie.
I should be nice. Stephanie showed me some amazing things about Final Cut, and it's great. I just can't get used to any of it. It's just the magnetic timeline. I mean, I will say ProRes flies in it, though. ProRes absolutely flies in it. But maybe that's going to change with Premiere because they just made it native in Premiere. So it could not be an issue anymore. So anyway.
I do love never having to render anymore unless I really feel the need. So.
But you find you still have to do heavy lifting or transcoding in Avid.
Well, right? Yeah. Well, most of my Avid stuff, though, when I'm actually doing an Avid project for this one client, they have assistants in-house. So I just get a hard drive and I go to town. Nice. So I don't really have to worry about that. I just have to make sure I put the right, it's been a couple weeks since I've had to do this. Put the right folder in the MXF folder.
Right.
In Avid. So, and then all of a sudden, media, woohoo! So, so that I don't have to worry about so much.
That's cool. I think Avid's great, especially for collaborative workflows. But I see Final Cut and actually Resolve taking another chunk out of Avid's market share, just because not everyone is working in a corporate environment or a collaborative environment or a broadcast environment that needs the tools that Avid provides. So. And I'm sure every Avid editor is going to shoot me for saying that.
Well, they certainly do have their niche and the workflow for teams. And when multiple editors are working on projects, right now it is unparalleled. But I've seen and heard podcasts about some, both in the Premiere space and the Final Cut 10 space, that that they know that is a brass ring to shoot for. So I think that some improvements will be made there, and I think they might make a dent or two in some of the places where Avid has a foothold, but Avid also knows this is coming, so they might have big plans.
Right, they would be foolish to not see the writing on the wall. So
yeah, so and I was Avid certified in 93 or something. So I'm Avid from way back. That was my first NLE. I am Avid at the core, but I use the tools as a freelancer, or I use the tools that the clients want me to use. Mm-hmm. So.
Can we just get blend modes? Can we just get blend modes? That's all I want. That's all I want.
I can't argue with that at all. You are absolutely right.
I don't need 10. Just give me screen, add, and multiply. Or screen, multiply, and overlay. I'm not greedy. Just give me 3. Just 3. I'm tired of getting the phone call. We got a phone call today from somebody who said, I've been an editor for 18 years. What are these blend modes you speak of? And I'm trying to think, are you still cutting tape to tape? Or, what are you using? And stuff like, how do I answer this?
It really does depend on, there are some editors out there that really are offline doing cuts, and it goes to a finishing editor. They don't need to know anything about blend modes or transitions or anything in the, in the compositing or graphics world. They just need to be able to cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I think those jobs are becoming less and less prevalent. And every year there's going to be fewer people who can get by doing just that. So,
yeah, I think the idea of just being an editor is few and far between now. If you're a editor on an episodic, fine, but that's less than 1% of our industry, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, but like you probably.
I'd like to be in that 1% though, wouldn't you?
Heck yeah. Oh, yeah. I miss working in Hollywood, but I don't want an editor's job by any stretch of the imagination. It's too much. No, it's not for me. But what you're doing by doing graphics and archiving and hand-holding and part-time therapist, because that's as an editor, half your role is babysitting and taking care of the person you're working for and guiding them to the right decisions. So.
And the other thing I get to do is I get to have my rants at the independent producer. Because the independent producer is also thinking exactly what I'm thinking, but they get to talk to the client.
Nice.
Or they have to talk to the client. I get to say what I want to say to my client. They don't get to say what they want to say to their client.
Love that.
So there's that benefit there. But if I accidentally say it to the wrong person, though, that could be dangerous. It could be limiting to my income.
Maybe. I just can't see anybody being mad at you, though. So.
Oh, trust me, it's happened. I've had a bad day or two.
Maybe 2.
Oh wait, I'm getting something from the text messages.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Steph, why don't you tell everybody where they can find all this? Because I don't make any sense after 10 o'clock.
So you can find this episode and all past episodes and future episodes at rampantlive.com. That's rampantlive.com. You can tune in every Tuesday and Thursday, just like tonight, at 9 o'clock Eastern. On Thursday, we have Neil on from All Things Post, so it'll be a really fun interview as well. So thank you, Deb, so much for coming on tonight. It's been amazing, and I love hearing your story, and thank you for sharing it to everyone who's watching, and then everyone who's going to watch on YouTube. So be fun.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. You're awesome.
They'll get the edited version.
Good night, Ninja Kitty.
Good night, Ninja Kitty.
Ruined Chris's joke. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Brent, for lurking. Dude, I'm going to make you talk one day. I'm going to get you on the show, and you're going to have to speak then. Thank you to everybody
It's not
else.
that bad.
No, we don't bite.
No, they're very gentle.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Graham. Thank you for everybody for popping in, and thanks again, Deb. And we will send you links for all of this. And can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And I
Thank
seriously
you.
want to snag one of those penguins. That's a whole different story.
There's a lot of them back there.
That is nice.
Penguins
That
are
is
popular.
awesome. They are. Thanks again, and thank you to the Mister for the lighting, the audio, the art direction, and the beer. Thank you, the Mister.
Yes, thank you.
And that's trademarked. So when you say the Mister, you have to say TM. Thanks
Good
a lot,
night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.